Great. It's happening. Okay, so first off, thank you all for being here. At the beginning of all my learnings, I like to dedicate our learning that may our learning be for the unification of all of the worlds. May through that which is hidden and that which is revealed to us, and may it not be just for us, but may it be for all of our family, all of Israel, and all of the whole world. And may the merit of that lift us all up a little bit higher. And with that, I'm gonna share my screen and jump into this. Oh, okay. How do here we go. Share, share, share. Kablam. Okay, it's happening. Everybody can see? Okay, great. A fast for the climate crisis. That's what we're here to talk about and learn about. I also want to say during this class we're not so many people, which is really nice. So I built in a bunch of times to just pause and take questions. But also, if there's ever a moment where you're like, "Whoa, wait, what's going on?" My mom once sent me a great video before I went to grad school that always talking about the best question that ever happens in schools is, "Wait, what?" Wait, what? Is like an amazing question. It's like the most important, like, wait, what? So please, if we have any of those, please stop. You can do the raise your hand button, or you can just come off mute and say something. So please do that. Okay. So, first off, just who is Adamah SF? Who are we? For those of you who are maybe familiar or less familiar, we are here to cultivate vibrant Jewish life in deep connection with the earth in the Bay Area. And we're running a host of different programs from youth programs to these learnings to a bunch of hikes coming to Marin and Palo Alto and a Havdalah event at the Chabot Observatory in Oakland Hills and things like that. And we really want to connect Jewish life to Earth-based connection, pretty much. Itamar, you want to come off and say anything else about who we are? That was good. Okay, let's keep rolling then. And in both our tradition and in the Native American tradition, we start with the words that come before all else, which is gratitude. We wake up first thing and we say, Modeh ani, I'm grateful. So to start off this talk with just a moment of gratitude, first off to Don already mentioned, to Arthur Wasco and the Shalom Center, and Don, I think you had a big part in this, of like inspiring this idea of Ta'anit Esther, the Fast of Esther, being a tool that we can use to address the climate crisis. And then also Itamar and my colleagues, Rabbi Fred Schindler-Daub and Bruce Spryer, who have done a lot of work at Adamah National to bring this consciousness to this moment, this day. And if anyone's looking for more, they made a whole guide for how to make Ta'anit Esther addressing the climate crisis. And I'm going to send this slide deck out afterwards so you can click through and get this link. So don't even worry about it. You can have it if you want that. Okay, what's this whole fasting thing about, anyways, right? Let's do a quick overview of the Purim story. First, King Achashverosh, king of Persia, banishes his queen. Whole other story there about why. Then he ends up marrying Esther as his new queen. But Esther is Jewish, but she hides her identity and because she doesn't want to be known as, and Esther literally means hidden in Hebrew, just for those who are tracking. Then Mordecai, Esther's uncle, doesn't bow down. That's a typo, not Achashverosh, to Haman. There we go. Holly's with me at least. Yeah, okay, all right. And so Haman plots to kill all of the Jews. It's a pretty ridiculous jump from one guy, dishonoring you a little bit to like wanting to kill every single person in his tribe. That's pretty intense. And then Mordecai finds out and tells Esther that she has to go before the king and plead for her people's lives. But Esther's scared to go before the king because if you go before the king uninvited, that's a death sentence to you. So, what does Esther do? She fasts in preparation and in prayer. And not only does she fast, she asks all of the Jewish people to fast with her. Okay, so that's where this whole fast day comes from. Purim ends up being the day where everything goes well, and the day before that, we have a fast. Okay, thank you, Alana, for nodding your head. I know you're with me. Everybody else with me on this so far? Drew, you good? Okay. Okay, yeah, one more slide. There we go. And there's this pivotal moment that Holly, you actually already brought up. Right? Esther says to Mordecai, "You don't know," because Esther's like, "I don't want to go before the king. I'm scared. I don't know. I'd have to like give up my seat of power. I don't know what to do this thing. Like I'm nervous." And Mordecai says, "Who know? Like who knows if you have all this wealth, if not to like actually do it, use it for a purpose, or who knows?" And this is kind of a pivotal moment in the story. And I'm going to come back to this at the end, so I want everybody to also be thinking about like what position are we in that who knows, maybe we're in this position for this moment and what can we do with it? That's kind of what we're being asked. Okay, so what does Esther do? How do we actually see what she does and when she fasts? Okay, she removes her garments. She puts on sackcloth. She undoes her hair, that's all done up nicely. She puts in dirt and ashes, and then she afflicts herself with a fast. And lastly, she prays. So this is what our sages, this is not from the scroll, this is actually from our sages kind of making up fan fiction about what it was, what actually happened in the scroll. But this is what our sages are saying, are thinking that actually happened here. So I just want to note the elements. Not when we think about a fast, oftentimes we think about not eating. But there's all these other elements that are here too that I want to put into our minds. Okay, pause. Questions, review. Who's got one? Yeah, Holly.
It's not really a question, it's a comment.
Comments?
The way she changed her clothes and changed her look and everything was like very classic grief. It's the way you would behave. It was the way you would end up looking if someone beloved to you had died.
Uh-huh.
And so it's kind of like she wasn't just not eating, she was going through a death process to prepare herself for what might be the end of her life, because you didn't say really what happened to Vashti. She just didn't just get banished, she got executed. So, you know, Esther realizes that she is potentially facing her own death. And so in a sense, she is grieving the loss of her own life in a proactive sort of a way, anticipating that might be what happens.
Thank you for bringing that connection. It reminds you of what's going on here. It reminds you of the mourning process. Thank you for adding that.
Can you
I also have
say,
a question.
Yeah,
Is it possible? Oh, sorry.
go ahead, Mom. Then we'll get to Drew.
Is it possible that the fast doesn't have to do with food, but it has to give up? It has to do with her giving up um, the goodness that she has in her life by being married to the king. So she gave up her crown. She took down her hair. The jewels are gone. She's in sackcloth. So she's given up the worldly goodness
Hmm.
that the special place that she has, and she's going back to being one of everyone else.
Hmm. Right. She's almost playing the pauper, and the pauper doesn't have the food. So that type of it. Yeah. Cool. Drew?
I'm just curious about what you said about Esther in Hebrew, meaning hidden.
Hmm.
At some point, we can unwrap that a little, go a little deeper into that, because I know I don't speak Hebrew, but I know Hebrew words often have many meanings, and the root of it is often very instructive.
Yeah. So the root Esther, astir means to haster means hidden, or that's literally what the word means. Alana, you have your hand raised, and your Hebrew's better than mine. Maybe you wanna, or Ismar has his hand
I
raised.
raise my hand.
Sorry.
Yeah, Samech Tafresh, that's the root setel, which means hidden. I raised my hand because one thing that when you did the simple run through the main events, and you said, oh, the just like not bowing, how does that lead? And just made me think of civil disobedience, made me think of like the danger of even the smallest non-compliance, even the smallest non-compliance with this authority threatens no matter how big the authority, no matter how small the civil disobedience, it shows that you can not comply. And that's very dangerous to the system, which is maybe why the response is so severe.
Wow. Phew. Good one. Okay. Anyone else? Let's go forward. Okay. Now we're going to do a little bit of a switch and we're going to talk about rain. You'll understand why, but to understand this fast and to understand that why it might be connected to the climate crisis. It felt to me that we have to go through this how Judaism thinks about rain. So from the very, very beginning, this is in the creation story, in the second creation story, right? Because there's the first chapter and the second chapter. So in the second chapter, the verse says, when no shrub of the field was yet on earth, and no grasses of the field had yet sprouted, because the eternal God had not sent rain upon the earth, and there were no human beings to till the soil. So already there's some sort of connection between humans and the natural order of things. And so Rashi, the great commentator, is picking up on what does it mean yet? And he comments, because God had not caused it to rain, or he's commenting on because God had not caused it to rain. What is the reason God had not caused it to rain? Because there was no human to till the ground. So some sort of connection between our tilling the ground and the rain. And there was therefore no one to recognize the utility of rain. So some sort of our saying we need rain actually is what brings the rain. And when the first person was created, Adam realized that it was necessary for the world, and Adam prayed for rain, and it fell. And because of that, the trees and the grasses sprang forth. Which is amazing. That like this whole thing, Alana, this has to be up your alley, right? Yeah, like that our connection to the earth and the rain cycle is 100%. That without human beings, it seems in Jewish tradition, there actually would have never been any rain, and without any rain, no grasses and no trees and no environment that we know it of. Okay, that's where we start. What is the divine deal? This is in the Shema, so maybe it's familiar to some people in the second paragraph. Here's the deal. Here's what the divine says. If you listen to the mitzvot, the instructions that I enjoy upon you, to love the universe and serve your life with all of your heart and all of your soul, what we'll do. And if we do that, what will the divine do? The divine will grant us rain, both the early rains and the late rains. And because of that, we'll be able to gather in our grain, our wine, and our oil. And those three things are the three staple products of the land of Israel. And if you think of it, that's the Shabbat table. The wine that we make Kiddush over, the grain that we have as the challah, and the oil are the candles. Because back then they didn't really have wax candles or tallow candles. They would have used oil for their candles. So the Shabbat table with the candles and the wine and the bread is the like altar of the land of Israel, the altar that this religion is kind of native to, that is showing God, thank you for bringing the early and the rain such that all of this would come, and you're bringing the rains because we're following the path. There's this relationship between the path and the rains coming.
So wait, what?
Yeah, go ahead. What do you got?
How is how did Adam know about the rain if there wasn't any rain?
Ah, what a good question. You're saying back here when Adam was created and realized that it was necessary for the world. How did that dawn upon him?
Yeah, there was none. So how did he know? He couldn't know because there wasn't any, but then there wasn't. But he said he needed it. So how? Miracle.
Who wants to give it? Josh.
So, yeah, so this isn't an answer to what you said, Drew. This is kind of like another piece of the puzzle. So during the creation, it wasn't that there wasn't water. There was water, but there wasn't rain. And this idea of the evaporation, precipitation cycle is almost like it was everything was there as possibility, but until the rain cycle started happening, that's kind of like when the engine turned over and everything started to happen,
Hmm.
right? Because the water was already there, but it wasn't, there weren't clouds, there wasn't rain, there wasn't evaporation. All of that wasn't happening until this moment.
Very cool. Drew, I don't, yeah, Alana.
I just like I really love that. I just love the feeling into the image of the rain being what really unites the sky and the earth. That there's something that's so special in that. Um, so yeah, just I love that you shared that, Holy Bloom.
Very cool. Okay, so we need humans, and the humans need the rain. And if we act in right relationship with the earth, if we do the mitzvot, then what happens? Then the divine will send the rains at the proper times, and we'll be able to bring in our harvests. It's a simple covenant. But for now, we need a moment to pause and understand the natural cycle. Okay, here's where it's gonna get a little fun. Okay, we're gonna do it. Okay, if we understand these directions, and this is Good Wilderness Torah, is brought to us by the Eight Shields Institute and Rabbi Zell Golden and other people who I'm very grateful to have learned from. Sorry, I'm just noticing that there was a chat. Mom, that's a good question. I don't know. Okay, sorry. Okay, so if we think about the natural cycle in this way, and so if the east, what happens in the east? The sun rises in the east, so that's the dawn, right? And then at noon, in the south, where the sun kind of comes onto its highest point, so then we can think of the west as twilight, and then the north, of course, will be midnight and come around to a dawn again. And so that's kind of a day, if we kind of think of this in this way. And then we can also think of it in this way as the seasons. So then east is the springtime, and south would then be summer when it's full heat. And then the west obviously is kind of the setting of the heat, which would be fall, and the north is in the winter. And then we've done a day and the seasons. We can also then map on a lifetime of a human onto this. So then the east is going to be birth, adolescence, young adulthood, elder, death, and then kind of like gestation and moving forward into life. Do people kind of understand? I'm about to do like the whole agricultural cycle on top of this. So if you're not, we could pause for questions here to make sure everybody understands kind of whatever I started setting up. Okay, people are with me. Okay, so then let's do the agricultural cycle of the land of Israel on top of this, which also is very apropos to the climate in Northern California, which is awesome. Okay, over here in the fall is actually when grain seeds are planted, kind of before it's rained. And then the early rains come, and the early rains are hopefully these gentle rains, which kind of just like soften up the earth and make the seeds go in and decompose and start doing their things. Then what happens? You're all the winter, it's raining and raining and raining until kind of the breaking of winter, which was about 3 weeks ago, and the trees start blossoming. The almond trees, the plums, the first trees start to blossom until we come around to about where we are right now. And this is the grain seeds which we planted over here and have been getting soaked by the rains. The grain heads start to develop. So they start to like the grasses have grown up and the seed heads are actually starting to develop. And then we get the late rains, and the late rains are what make those grain heads plump up and into fullness. And so there you have this kind of wet, dry, seasoned demarcation between over here in the fall to over here in the spring. Everything on this side in the winter is wet, and everything in the summer is dry. And if we keep going around, then we get into the barley harvest. The late rains have plumped up the barley. The barley is ready first. Then we get the wheat harvest. Then the first figs and other tree fruits are going to start being ready. We're going to harvest tree fruits all kind of summer long until the grape harvest is going to be about ready, somewhere over here, depending on the microclimate and the type of grape. Then this is kind of be the end of our vegetable harvests. And then the last thing to harvest will be the olive harvest. And then it will be time where the dry season will be over, and it'll be time to start planting the seeds for the grains again, and we'll go back around. And this is very important because the late rains can't be later than this. Any rain later than this will ruin the barley harvest because the barley and the wheat have to dry in the fields. You need the late rains to make the grain heads plump up, but if they come too late, then they ruin the harvest. So it's all about everything happening in its time. Let's do it one more time to really layer it on. Okay, now we're going to put in the Jewish holidays on top of this. So, barley harvest, that's Passover. We get our first grains. Then Shavuot is the end of the harvest, and the time between this is the Omer, where we're counting Omers. Omer means a bundle of grains. So between the barley harvest and the wheat harvest, and the Shavuot is also the first fruits. Then we're gonna get the ninth of Av, which is when everything's in full heat and like really, really hot, and things are burning in the summer. And then right after that, we kind of get Tu B'Av, which is whatever I left it off of this. And then we're over here into Rosh Hashanah. Things are cooling off into the fall. We're going to end the vegetable harvest, which is going to bring us to Sukkot. Sukkot is the harvest festival. We've now brought in all of the summer's harvests, and we can now say thank you because we're ready to sustain ourselves through the winter. Then Shmini Atzeret is when we pray for the rains. So we plant our seeds, and then the early rains come and we're into the wet season. Hanukkah is in that dark time in the north when everything's hidden and we have to light a candle. Tu B'Shvat happens when the trees start to blossom. And then Purim is happening exactly at the moment when the grain heads are developing. And so we've mapped on the Jewish calendar onto the nature of the land of Israel. That every single one of the holidays is connected to an agricultural moment. Do we have a pause for question? Is it? Oh, and then the late rains, of course. Pause for questions. Excellent. Glad I put that there.
To
Okay.
know apples.
Apples?
Apples.
Uh,
The apples.
yeah. What about them?
They're not on the map.
I guess I would say that they're not like a religiously relevant crop in terms of the
They are for Rosh Hashanah, apples and honey.
for sure. I think that's later.
I'm sorry, I'm just giving you a hard time.
Great. That's later than the biblical time.
I think that's like a Eastern Europe lay on.
No, it's earlier than that because even the
Oh,
Sephardim have that as a part of their simanim,
okay.
I would think. Uh,
No, I'm just making trouble.
okay, great. Yeah, done?
Yeah, I have a comment. I'm just going to give. You're talking now in terms of time. I was going to give the dimension of space and link this to the previous topic that you had raised in terms of commandedness, and it's going to rain when human beings first come about. And it seems that to me that's very Israel centric because and the idea of the necessity for rain is something that's much more prominent in Israel of those times compared to Egypt, let's say, where rain was much scarcer and people depended on the Nile and that source of water in order to survive. But in Israel, it was the rains that that was the consequence. So if you're living out the commandments, it seems like you're going to be doing that in Israel. That seemed to be like a focus that way. So.
You're 100% right. And there's even a verse in the Torah that says, the land that I'm taking you to is not a land like Egypt's, where the Nile overflows. It's a land of, hills and valleys. It's a land where, so on and so forth. And it specifically says you're going to be dependent upon rain. And that's a specific kind of like nature-based, earth-connected theology of the land of Israel, as opposed to the theology of Egypt, which is much more the Nile and the Nile's flow and overflowing their banks. So it's 100% tied in that way. Thank you for bringing that up.
I have a question about Tu B'Shavat.
Yeah.
So when I've been to Tu B'Shavat celebrations through Wilderness Torah, it came to my mind as it was started out as a tax holiday on the nuts and fruits that had been harvested, and that was like the accounting. So that's hard to square with blossoming and the birth of the trees or the birthday of the trees.
Uh-huh. Yeah. Tu B'Shvat's got a lot of different valences.
Okay.
Can send you the recording of 2 weeks ago's class on that if you would like. And but this is in terms of the tax day of it, this
Mm-hmm.
is the demarcation where you can say anything that fruited or blossomed before this day was in that tax year, and anything that blossoms after this day or fruits after this day is in next year's. So it makes sense as a dividing place because it's a place where you can clearly then say anything that grew before this or anything that grew after this.
Got it.
And so the
That's
same
that's
thing, there's another tax day on vegetables, which happens over here at Rosh Hashanah. Rosh Hashanah is also the Rosh Hashanah for the vegetable taxes, which also makes sense because anything that starts growing after this day, there isn't anything that's starting to grow after that day. There might be a few things left in the field which are harvest, but those
mhm.
things already took root, so you count them as last year.
Thank you. That helps a lot.
Cool. All right. Forward. Weiter. Okay, now we're going to go to the Mishnah and we're going to understand the connection between fasting and rain. I shouldn't have said this to you yet. The Mishnah is early rabbinics. We're talking about it's being codified between the year, 200, around the year 200. And so it's early rabbinics, kind of post-destruction of the Second Temple, before the people have left and made their center of living in Babylon. So it's of the land of Israel, and it's case law. That's the number one thing to remember of Mishnah. It's case law. So there's always going to be a case. What if? And then we're going to be talking about it from there. Okay, so we're in the Mishnah that's talking about ta'anit, which is fasting. And what is the Mishnah of fasting all about? The Mishnah, this whole tractate, the whole thing is about fasting, and it's all about fasting for rain. 100% for rain. So, what does this say? It says, on the 17th of the month of Cheshvan, if no rain has come yet, we institute 3 fasts for individuals. Individuals meaning the elite of society, the rebbeim, the judges, those people. They may eat and drink after dark, and one is permitted to work and bathe and smear oil and wear shoes and use the bed. Holly got it. Okay, so what do we notice? Well, first off, let's just put this in time. Cheshvan is here. Okay, so if we've made it in the cycle to here and it hasn't yet rained, that means we haven't gotten the early rains yet. And so we're starting to be worried. Okay, and so we institute a fast. And when it says 3 fasts, that means Monday, Thursday, Monday. Not 3 days in a row. It means Monday, Thursday, Monday. Okay, and what do we see? It's not just eating, or it's eating. You can't eat, but you can do all these other things. This is in the first chapter, the 4th Mishnah. Let's see what the 5th Mishnah says. Uh-oh, if the new moon of the next month of Kislev has arrived and still it hasn't rained, then the court decrees that the entire community fasts. No one can eat, but you are permitted to work and bathe and smear oil, which is like adorn yourself or like lotion, right? And you wear shoes and you can use the bed. Okay, so now I gotta, right? So Kislev is the first day of Kislev is like here. Mishnah 6. Okay. If those have passed, the court decrees another 3 fasts. So remember, a 3 fast is a Monday, Thursday, Monday. So now you're into the middle of Kislev already. And you have to refrain from eating. And now we're prohibited from working or bathing or smearing oil or wearing shoes or using the bed. And they lock the bathhouses. And if those pass and still the no rain has fallen, the court decrees another 7 fasts. So 7 then would be Monday, Thursday, Monday, Thursday, Monday, Thursday, Monday. Now this is like really getting serious because now in the cycle we're already like over to here and it hasn't rained. And traditionally, we understand that by Tu B'Shvat, most of the year's rains have fallen, and everything after that is like another kind of light rain. The heavy rains happen here. Okay? And what else do? They sound the alarm and they lock the stores. We're like prohibiting ourselves from doing business in any way. Yeah. Drew, I see your question. I'm going to do one more mission.
Eli, does he breaking up for other people?
Oh,
Eli, you're breaking up.
am I back? Yes, no?
Sort of.
A little bit?
Try again.
Let me turn my phone off.
Yeah, now you're back. Yeah, so you're at 6. And I actually had a quick question. It says in that first paragraph, one may, if this is stricter, it says you can eat and drink during the day.
Yeah,
How
great.
is that a fast?
Uh, One may eat and drink only while it is day, meaning there's two types of fasts. One fast is sunrise to stars out, and another fast is sunset to stars out.
Okay.
So we're increasing the intensity. We've gone the first fast were sunrise to stars out, so the day, and now we're increasing the fast to be sunset to stars out. So we've made the fast from like 12 hours to like 25 hours.
Hmm.
So Yom Kippur, for instance, is a sunset to stars out. It's sunset to the 25-hour period. Whereas the Fast of Esther, which is going to be on Monday, is sun first. It's dawn, first light to stars out. Thank you for that clarification. Did somebody put anything in the chat? Do we have a question there?
I don't know how to raise my hand, but I'm still confused. So it says one may eat and this is maybe the same question. One may eat and drink only while it is still day. It didn't seem that your answer responded to that
The
one.
day before. So like Wednesday.
Oh,
One may eat and drink only while it is Wednesday,
Wednesday. Okay.
but it's already Wednesday at night. Now we're saying you can't eat anymore.
Okay. That helps. Thanks,
Yeah,
John.
yeah,
I
yeah.
thought I just wasn't getting it.
No, it's confusing language. It's confusing language. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I just want to, I mean, something that Ilana kind of said as soon as we saw the first one about not eating after sundown, Ilana said, "Oh, like the Muslims, and we are in Ramadan now." And so, yeah, I never, yeah, I guess I never heard about a Jewish fast that is like the Muslim fast, and that's like interesting just to find. I wonder what's the connection. Yeah.
Thank you. Yeah. Cool. Any more questions on this? Already paused. Oh, wait, there was one in the chat. Grandma, you said, why do we keep praying if God is not listening? Yeah, I think that's like the main thing here is I started with the whole thing that our prayers are necessary for the rain cycle. So what's happening if clearly nothing's like what is I want to keep your question and let's talk about it more when we get to the end, but what is the relationship between our doing and our actions and our prayers and actually the nature working properly? That's kind of what we're here to talk about. So one more Mishnah. Okay, if all of those fasts have happened, the three original one of just the elites, then the first three, which were like just not eating, and then the next three, which were more severe, and then the next seven, the next seven that were even more severe. If all of that is passed and still the rains have not come, we don't do any more fasting, actually. Which grandma, maybe this is, it's just like, okay, it's enough. Like we're not gonna mourn forever. But everybody kind of just decreases everything a little bit. And we don't do all these other normal happy things we would do normally in life. And then what does it say at the very end? If Nisan has come and still the rains haven't fallen, then we don't want to pray for any more rain because if it rained then it would ruin the harvest. which is, so I'm just gonna go back to the, right? This is, if we get to here, this is Nissan right here. If we get to here and still it hasn't rained, we don't actually want rain anymore because whatever had been growing miraculously or, watered by cisterns or something like that would be ruined by rain if it rained in this period. So we stop praying for rain at this moment.
We stopped praying for rain anyway at that moment.
Exactly, exactly. But this is now it's been a drought year, and we're still going to stop praying for rain at that moment because it would be bad for us to have the rain. A rain at that point would be a curse, which is very apropos to what we're experiencing in the climate today, right? Like snow is a very good thing, and snow at the wrong time is horrible, right? Cold. I grew up in Minnesota. Cold in Minnesota is a really important thing. Like you need the lakes to freeze. That's actually really important for the ecosystem there. And cold too late or too early kills all the blossoms off the trees, and then you ruin the apple harvest. Um, so we need Geshem B'Yito. We need rain in its moment, in its time. Yeah. Okay, I think I just put this here to show again, right? So if we need the rains here, if it hasn't rained by here, we do one fast. If it hasn't rained by here, we do another fast. Then here we do more, and then we do that whole set of seven, and then we stop fasting, yeah, but we diminish kind of like. And Holly, I'm really glad that you brought up, if we think about what was Esther's first thing, like what Esther first did is very similar to what we're being told or not doing here, right? Not smearing oils. That's like the different sackcloth and ashes is the difference between is bathing and smearing oil, right? And wearing shoes is taking off her clothes and yeah. So there's parallels here. Okay, summary of all of this so far. Human right action is essential for the natural order. Doing mitzvot or walking the proper path, living in the right way, brings us the rains we need and our staple grains, our staple harvests. Environmental disruption is an indicator that we need to course correct. And how did our ancestors course correct? They did it through this thing called fasting. Right? This is the argument that I'm trying to put forth. I wonder, I want to pause here and see, are people with me? Are people buying it? You have a
Yeah, I think it's a very interesting point that you're making, and I'm glad that you went to the level of detail that you did in terms of it's not just about donate.
okay,
It's way more it's you're kind of subjecting yourself to a Yom Kippur Katan,
Yom Kippur to Katan. Very nice. Yeah. And I don't
right?
remember if I put the next slide next or if it's 3 slides from now. So let's just click the button and see where it went. Okay. So I should have, whatever. I went back and forth of whether I should put this on. So the Adamah National Jewish Climate Jewish Climate Leadership Coalition founding statement reads as this: The climate crisis is real, and it is here. Nearly one-third of Americans lived through a weather disaster in 2021. The overwhelming global scientific consensus confirms that we see with our own eyes hurricanes, superstorms, wildfires, drought, dangerous air quality for months at a time, each year worse than the last. Jewish values compel us to confront this crisis, and our commitment to Jewish community compels us to do so together. Our coalition represents Jewish organizations engaging millions of people of all ages and backgrounds across the world. Together, we recognize the urgency of climate crisis and our obligation to do more. The Jewish people have a long history. Our ancestors endured suffering and calamity, then rose to meet the next challenge. It is now our generation's imperative to confront this existential crisis together with communities across the world. And this for us, going off on what Don you said before the class really started, is exactly why use the Fast of Esther. First off, it's that imperative. Who knows? Perhaps we're all in exactly the moment we're in, wherever we are, stationed in life, for this moment. I don't know. Maybe somebody knows a congressperson or someone knows, a billionaire or like who knows what you're doing, or you're a teacher or wherever you are in life. Like who knows? But maybe it's time to do this. Two, this is communal. The fast of Esther, Esther didn't just go in, Esther's in the seat of power, but she doesn't just do it herself. She says, everybody do it with me. We're all in this together. And three, Esther is seeing an existential crisis before her, the elimination of the Jewish people. And so too, we're seeing that. The climate crisis is existential for the human race. And so we ask this question, what are we fasting for this year? And we're asking, can it be for the climate crisis? And now, Holly Blue, to get to your thing, what does it mean to fast? And so here, Drew, we're going to get into the Hebrew a little bit. You're my guy. Okay. Ta'anit. Ta'anit is how we say fast in Hebrew. But I woke up one day in preparing for this class. I was like, wait a minute. There's a different word I know for fast, which is tzom. Right? We say tzom kal and Yom Kippur. And I was like, okay, well, hold on. If both of those words mean fast, then what is the difference? What is a ta'anit? So then I started thinking about it, and it got very tricky because ta'anit, the root of the word ta'anit is really interesting because I looked it up in a bunch of dictionaries, and it's connected with the word anna. And maybe Itamar Alana will tell me, what does the word anna mean?
You could read it as he answered.
Okay, so
So
to
to
answer,
answer.
right? Yeah. But also, isn't it? It seems to me it's also like call and response.
Anne. Yeah.
Yeah. So how would you use that in a sentence? Like calling, like the
Yeah.
choir.
And Anneli, respond to me. Yeah.
Okay, so the ta'anit is not only a fast, maybe it's also connected with like a response or it's my answer to something like that. But it goes crazier. What is anav, which is also the same shorish in the dictionaries? Itamar?
Ilana.
Humble.
Humble, right. Do you
Yeah.
have an example or like of another connection that you can make? Like, is like,
To be humbled down, to be like to the bare essence, to be begging from the most like bare place. I don't know.
beautiful. Thank you.
Yeah.
And one more until you can fight over it. Or somebody else who knows good Hebrew. I'm just picking on the two that I know. What about Inui?
Inui means like torture, like suffering.
Yeah.
Yeah. Afflicted.
So I think when we put all of these,
There
yeah,
is one
Itamar?
more. There's
Oh,
one more.
what is it?
Ani,
Oh, poor.
poor.
Amazing. Okay, right. An ani is a poor person, like someone who is in poverty. Wonderful. So when we think about, I like to do it when I've taught in high school, I always do translation like this. I put the word in the middle, and then we circle it with all of the things that it could mean because translation is just interpretation. It never actually is like a one-to-one thing. As you can see, if we did fast, if we just called the ta'anit a fast, we would totally miss all of the other valences of what the ta'anit is. And if you think about it this way, does this make way more sense for what the rabbi said that Esther did, or what the Mishnah is telling us we do when we're praying when we need rain? This is like gives us a much more holistic picture. Maybe now it makes sense. Like if I'm in crisis and I'm worried about there not being rain, if I'm in existential crisis, maybe I don't just not eat. For some of us, not eating is wicked hard. For me, I can go a whole day without eating. It's like it's actually kind of like a cleanse. I'm like in it. It's good for me. Um, but to think about what are we going to do this year as we think about the climate crisis, how can we actually make this a fast, a ta'anit for us and our communities? And so I actually just want to pause here and give people the opportunity to come off of mute and maybe like say some things that they're thinking about. Like as we think about it this way, what are things you could do or encourage your community to do?
I'm I was thinking about that the last Mishnah which says like if you fast, you've done all the fast, and then you start with the shops close and there's no marriages and all of that. And I was thinking about also the pandemic, how in a way that's what happened. It took such a crisis to really shut, and how people, like you said, for some people, it's actually not a big deal to not eat, but to actually for us to refrain from shopping and being in these very comfortable lives is when we start to really feel it. Um, like that was the biggest like response or the action was taking that. So yeah, just starting to think about um yeah, what more can I refrain from or encourage being refrained from to really feel the impact, to start to really reflect and take in the crisis. Yeah.
Thank you.
So, and I was thinking about Esther and the process that she went through, and thinking it's one thing if you like say, okay, I know I'm going to be fasting tomorrow, so I'm going to make sure and hydrate really well today, and I'm going to, like do all these things so that by the time it's break the fast, I don't have a migraine. It's like, but for her, it was more like, instead of preparing herself by, you know, um, tooling up, it was more like she was
Mhm.
stripping away.
Mhm.
She did all these things to strip away her finery and to
Mhm.
just, it was almost like a theater piece that she did, where she just grubbied herself up and really psyched herself up for not just not eating, not just looking like a queen, but to really imagine herself. It was like a role play kind of thing where she was really imagining herself as having everything stripped away like that, and imagining what happened if Haman got his way, and just the horrible grief that would be visited upon the people. Um, this is brilliant what you've done.
Mhm.
Eli, I was thinking you kept relating it to the environment. And to me, fasting, especially at a time y- you're fasting because the rains haven't come, and are you making yourself like the trees and the fields and the dryness and the suffering, and um we can still walk maybe and find some water somewhere, or we can dig a well and maybe find some water, but the grass and the animals and the trees can't necessarily do that. So we're taking ourselves back to the basic of before there was man on the earth.
Shkoyach.
Mhm.
And that's such an interesting point about, like the trees can't go walk and find water. It reminds me of that thing about that we can't destroy trees.
Right.
And what's the question that we are asked is like, well, okay, you're at war, but can the trees run? No.
Right. For those who a little background, he's mentioning that in Deuteronomy, when the Torah is giving instructions when the Jewish people were at war, it says we're not allowed to cut down trees, a fruit tree specifically when a siege, and it says because what? Ki Adam et Sadeh is a person, is a tree like a person in the field that they could leave and flee from before your army? No. So yeah, thank you for bringing up that connection, Holly. True,
So,
yeah.
Eli, maybe I'm jumping ahead here, but what I really like about this slide is, if when confronted by a crisis, that's kind of the question, right? So you're asked to provide an answer, and the answer by fasting, from what I get from this, is awareness, right? Like, take this stuff seriously, be humble, recognize that you could be afflicted. Um, it could cause devastation. So, what my next question would be was, okay, that if the fast is about awareness, then where's the action, right? So like in climate crisis, or maybe that's like the next part of the story, um, but that awareness is a necessary step, but not sufficient to address the problem,
Mhm.
whatever the crisis might be.
Mhm. Do you think is there like a relationship though that like garnering awareness then leads to action or
Yeah, 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 absolutely, absolutely. But and is that coming, right? The action, right? Besides the fasting to bring the awareness of the need for action, is there anything in the Mishnah about what the action should be? I mean,
I mean so the Mishnah when it's talking about rain, the actions are these afflictions
right,
and the like humbling ourselves and I like what my mom said very much around like making ourselves
like
feel
the
the
tree,
pain of the natural worlds of like
right?
and what they're doing. So maybe that is enough of the action. When it comes to the Fast of Esther, I didn't bring these sources, but when it comes to the Fast of Esther, I think it's supposed to then lead us to open our hands. So there are four commandments of the day of Purim. One is to hear the story. One is to give donations to the poor. Let me say it in a different order. One is to hear the story. One is to have yourself a banquet to celebrate. One is to give to the poor so that they can also have a banquet, that they can have their own banquet, that we shouldn't leave anybody else out.
Mm-hmm.
And the fourth is to send little portions of food to all your friends, so it's kind of like we're all having one banquet.
Mhm.
All right, those are the four mitzvot of the day. So I think there are sources that I didn't bring here that are saying one of the things, one of the joys, the reasons of fasting, and this is in the guide that I mentioned at the beginning, if you want to find that source, the the merit of the fast is that people come out of the fast and give to the poor. So that's one source that I didn't bring in these slides, but maybe that's one answer.
Okay.
But I don't think it needs to be the only answer.
Yeah, and again, the poor is ani, so there is like a connection that is made, which is interesting. It feels like a almost like a paradoxical connection, because the poor person is the one that maybe isn't having their prayers answered in some way, and then the word for them is has to do with an answer.
Mhm.
And so maybe they are the ones that really know really well what it's like to be in that space of wanting your prayers answered and not having that. What is it like to dwell in that place? And I resonate with your question, Drew, and I also know that sometimes when faced with a challenge or a crisis, we go into overdrive of solutions, right? And we're not really open because we're like, oh, we're going to do this, we're going to do that, we're going to do this, and but when it doesn't work, then how do we? What's the state that we get into that really makes us open, humble, not distracted with other things, really aware that we need help, and what kind of creative, inspired solutions or answers can come from that state when we drop into it. Yeah, and I also feel some discomfort around the like just being in that state, right? So, but hopefully the intention is that we drop into that state that then reveals something that we couldn't see when we were just thinking about, oh, we're just going to solve this, and we have the power to do it, and it's just a question of how. And yeah, so just some thoughts.
I really liked what Itamar said about maybe that is truly the definition of being poor is not having your prayers answered. It's
Mhm.
not the having of wealth or the having of the house or the jewels or whatever we consider to be the opposite of poor, but really to be truly the base level of poor is to not have your prayers answered.
Done?
Yeah, so a couple things come to mind here. One thing is what strikes me in terms of the dialectic between the Fast of Esther and Purim, and since you brought up like Purim and the different ways of the obligations, which effectively bring joy through the banquet and giving gifts and gifts to the poor, it's there's a line that in some circles is famous. I think her name is Toy Delacourt. It's like joy is an act of resistance. And so, what is striking about that, if to put it in a religious context, if you think of Judaism as the essence of it is a rejection of cynicism, that the idea that there's going to be progress, that things can change for the good in some ways, maybe not right now, but maybe eventually, then an act of joy, such as we celebrate in various ways on Purim, is a way um, to start in terms of that act of resisting the cynicism. And then I don't know if this is the place to get into actual things that one can do. I can talk
Next
about.
slide.
Yeah, yeah, we can do. But before we go, so could you just talk about the Tzom part, that type of fast? Like, how do you distinguish the Tzom from the Tanit? Like, what does Tzom mean?
I'm interested to hear what the native Hebrew speakers say, but my first thing was it's a square rhombus situation. Like a tzom is a not eating,
Mm.
and a ta'anit could not be eating, but could also be all these other things.
Are there other ta'anits, Eli?
Again,
Like,
ta'anit dibur.
oh, right. But none of the other fasts in the Jewish calendar they use the word ta'anit.
Yeah, inui
Or is it-
nefesh is that's the so in for Yom Kippur the language is inui nefesh to afflict your soul. And from that come the whole thing, not wearing leather, not adorning yourself, so those things. So Don, I asked this question, and one of the scholars at the synagogue I go to said, it's the difference between biblical and rabbinic Hebrew. And I was like,
Mm.
that's such not a fun answer. But it was he's a linguistic scholar, so yeah, we'll take him for that. But I thought it was less fun. Um, Don, you mentioned about joy. If I may, I ran this by my friend Noah, and he only half agreed with me, but I'll run it by you all because I thought it was fun. Um, if we think about this as the Jewish calendar, over here by Sukkot is the moment where we have no water left, right? So we all the rains have fallen, and then we've used the rain the whole summer, and there's been no water, and we have no water left. And the ritual that happened in the temple was we would take the last draw of water out of the cisterns and then pour it on the altar as an act of great faith that rain would fall again. And it was this type of, Itamar and Lana would call it sympathetic magic, which I like. That we're pouring it out, and just as we're pouring it out, God will then pour it down, right? And so that's happening over here, and that happened amidst the most joyous party ever to happen in the temple, right? So there's this like joyous moment over here, and I thought about this connection that what's happening over here at Purim, this is what we would call in agricultural studies like the hunger gap. So this is the most dangerous time of the year actually, because we're the farthest away from our harvest. Our harvest is over here, so all of our winter stores are being depleted. Nothing is really growing. The winter greens are kind of done now, and we can't. And Passover is the first moment where we can eat the next year's grains. So this is also just like over here. We had no rain left. Over here we have no the product of the rain. We have no food left. And just like over here, we poured out the water as an act of like faith that we'll get more. What do we do over here on Purim? We
Give
make
away.
up little bundles of food and we give it away to other people as this like grand act of not hoarding. And what do we do it amidst? We do it amidst the joyous, most joyous party thing. It's like this moment where we're potentially the most poor, the most oni, right? And worried about our foodstuffs. and as a joyous party, we give it away. Um, I had that epiphany. So I don't know if I would like you all to think about it and see, poke holes in it or whatever, but I thought it was pretty cool to think of it that way.
Yeah, it's Carnival. It's Mardi Gras. It's yeah, it's clearing the stores. I think it appears in several cultures that moment of when you get to the end of the stores just before then, just before you anticipate what's going to come next. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, even if you think about, the Pesach preparation, where we're like getting all the chametz out of the house and just scrubbing everything down to nothing. And, I like to say I'm glamping in my kitchen, I, it, we're just stripping everything away.
Yeah.
Which is interestingly enough what the body does when it fasts. It slowly starts to like eat itself, and it clears itself out, old dead cells and everything, and moves things through. And so interestingly enough, that's also, if we're thinking about fasting, what's happening when we're fasting.
Very cool. Very cool. Okay, y'all. So let's move forward a little bit. So, Adamah National and the Jewish Climate Coalition proposes a new ritual. This is just a proposal, and whatever you do or might have spent on the Fast of Esther for food, what if instead we donated it to a climate initiative? And that might not be a lot for us, right? I might not spend that much on food on any given day, but think if everybody did it, and if we did it as a communal thing, that could be really amazing, and we could actually make a substantial shift. So this is just an offering of one way to maybe think about how to do this ta'anit, not necessarily just fasting. Maybe also, I mean, I was thinking about it listening to you all. I was like, oh, maybe it would be a ta'anit of, commerce. Maybe we don't, I mean, in Minnesota, I know they were trying to shut down, wasn't there whole days of not buying anything to shut down the government as an act of resistance? Reminds me of what Itamar said at the beginning. Any act of resistance can challenge, um, the state of things. So starting to think about how we might use this fast day. Other ways to get involved. Itamar, this is where you wanted to jump in.
Sure. Well, first of all, I think that sometimes we underestimate just the power of community and of continuing to be in communal spaces and engaging. And so wanting to invite you to plug in to whatever, communities you're part of. And of course, you're welcome to join us at Adamah SF, and you can see in the website all the exciting and interesting things that we're offering for people to come around. But also to either, if you're part of an organization, and I'm sure that we are all connected to different organizations, to encourage and urge them to join the Jewish Climate Leadership Coalition and commit to making a climate action plan. And once they become part of the coalition, they get access to experts and they get access to grants and interest-free loans to put things in place. Solar panels, changing, fossil fuel use and other things. So that's one way, one thing that we can do. And then if you are part of a business, then we have a business that specifically focuses on things like climate technology or green technology. Then we have the Jewish Green Business Network, and you can join that. And that's like a networking place to connect with other people. And then, yeah, join Adamah SF, go on our website, subscribe to the newsletter. If you want, make a financial donation or volunteer your time. There's many ways to find a way. So those are some of the ways that we want to offer you to think about how to continue this or use the momentum of this class.
Thank you. Also, just for the upcoming events, if you wanted to plug in, this link is here. That just links you straight to our page. If you want to come up for a hike in Palo Alto, we're gonna have a hike in April. That's less of a drive than coming to the East Bay. Drew would love to see you at the Havdalah events that we're doing at the observatory.
The hike, I think we have Palo Alto in March and Marin in April.
Oh,
Right?
okay, thank you. And And then I want to end with a little bit of end in the joy of it. So one of the major themes of Purim is that everything gets turned upside down, right? The whole world gets turned upside down, which in Hebrew is v'nahafochu. Everything gets flipped over. And I think that also the actions and emotions of these 2 days, if you just take Purim on its own, there's no flipping over. But actually, if we take the fast seriously, then we go from this fast into this really joyous day. And we can live out what it says in the Psalms that we've taken away the sackcloth. Oh, I'm sorry. We've taken away the sackcloth and the ashes, and we've been girded in joy. And we can actually embody what it would feel like to go from this horrible calamity to this really joyous celebration. And if we're thinking about sympathetic magic, if we're thinking about embodying in our lives what we want to happen for the world, this is what like we are currently in an existential climate crisis, and that could end. And so, what would it feel like to then go into it so that we can come through it and come out the other side partying and giving each other gifts and having banquets that everyone is invited to come? And so I want to end with a quote from Arthur Waskow, who I started with gratitude for. He says in the very introduction to one of my favorite books ever, The Seasons of Our Joy, he says, long ago, our people believed, we're all on the way, that if we celebrated the cycle was more likely to continue. The rains would come when they were due, the sun would shine more warmly in its season, the crops would grow and die and grow again. And there is one reason more to observe the cycle. From the beginning, the Jewish people have celebrated the festivals in order to honor the unity that underlies all life. The very interweaving of the themes of history and nature, the human life cycle, the moment of spiritual experience, remind us that in some sense, all the realms of life are dancing with each other. The circles of the sun and of the moon, of every quiet act of newness, birth, creation, all are echoes of one circle. Let us then join the circle and begin the dance. So with that, I really hope you take this fast day seriously, and then I hope you put on a costume and go party seriously. Um, and thank you for joining us. And I want to take a moment, maybe we have a few minutes left. I always like to end the class with just like one or two nuggets that you're like, whoa, that was something that was a new idea, or someone said that, and I'm really grateful. I'm going to take that with me. Um, there were a bunch for me. I'm really holding on to what Itamar said at the very beginning, like even the smallest act of not bowing like threatens the whole thing. And I'm also holding on to what my mother, my teacher said, that like the fast is a way to get into what the trees are feeling in a drought. That was really cool.
Mm.
So thank you. Yeah. So please, other people, little popcorn.
And for me, it was Esther in Hebrew was hidden, and that her act of fasting in preparation of an act of bravery to step out of her hiddenness to save the people. That's a lesson. That's the action. Become unhidden.
Come on in.
I like that.
I really like the conjugation of tanit
Mm-hmm.
and all the meanings into it and how they all tie together.
Yeah, you also had that good one that the poor person is the one who doesn't have their prayers answered.
For me, I was struck by the idea of giving to the poor so they can have their own banquet. Um, uh, I love the dignity, and it gets into the idea of tzedakah. Even the poor have tzedakah, are obligated to give tzedakah. It ties into the really dignity of individuals.
Yeah. When I was learning in yeshiva, my rabbi Meir Schweiger was very adamant that shouldn't just give, like a lot of people give to fulfill the mitzvah of giving to the poor. And he was very adamant that one should give the amount that you are gonna spend on your party. And if you weren't gonna do that, at least give enough for someone to have their own party.
Hmm.
Yeah.
So, when I woke up this morning, the first time I looked at my phone, there was an email from uh, the co-director of the organization that I belong to, which is the Jewish Association for Death Education. The acronym is JADE. And we've been talking about the coalition and talking about, how, because my thing is green burial and the confluence between Jewish burial and green burial and how to really bring that forward. And so my first message from the outside world this morning was that um, Jade joined the coalition and
Mhm.
that it's put me in a position of being sort of our representative to the coalition. And so that was the way my day began. And I can tell you I'm pretty much done after this. And this has been a good day.
Cool.
This has been an amazing introduction into really what Adamah. I mean, I've taught at Urban Adamah before, but I've been hearing about you folks, but I've just been, too busy over in my own little silo. And just in terms of me and my own life, this has been the most amazing introduction I could imagine. So thank you.
Thank you. Don, you want to say another thing?
Yeah, if I can, and forgive me for this, I do a little brainstorming just for a second. Some of you may be aware, and maybe even this came from Adamah, I don't know where it came from, but the idea for a Passover Seder this year, have an ice cube that will melt during the course of the Seder for climate change. I'm just wondering, is there some ritual for Tani Esther that someone can think of as an idea? Just something one can personally do, apart from the idea of like give the amount of money that you would have spent on food, regardless of whether you eat or not. I'm just wondering if there might be some ritual that someone can suggest.
I had a communal one that I wanted to have
Putting people
everybody
on
do,
the spot.
do like a clothing swap where everybody came and brought all their clothing, and then everybody could come, and then you could like get costumes for Purim, and it would be this day of like clothing, and then all the clothes could be donated as a way of like getting away from fast fashion and moving clothing around, or like but I think that would take a little more organizing than like just putting.
I'm also touched by remembering about Estelle putting the earth and mud, like and letting her hair go wild. So maybe that's also a ritual for Tanit Estelle to connect to her. And one of the things I'm taking away is yeah, just thinking about the Mishnah and what a like kind of um like a bad scenario they were preparing for, like such a dramatic scenario that there would be no rain all the way all the way through. Yeah, there's something in it that feels really strong, and I'm curious to like study and like did they ever get to a place where they had to implement them, these different instructions? I'm curious.
So it's always a question. It's always like a question when I'm studying to have is like, were they thinking about this or did this come about? And so they,
Right,
because to remember, I said at the beginning, the Mishnah is case law.
right,
So we have a case and then what's the ruling? And generally, you don't have case law. Case law only comes about because a case was brought before the court. So that leads me that I've always been on the that if it's held in the case law, it's because it happened once. They're not just like sitting around wondering about what a situation would be like. But other people think that there's a debate there.
Yeah, for me, I'm taking away, first of all, gratitude for you, Eli, like for this beautiful teaching that you prepared. And thanks to, the Climate Coalition and Bruce and Fred for creating some guide on that. And it's always so good to be among people that care and that, want to get into it and like understand better and see how what it has to offer our lives. So I'm inspired by that, and taking away a question of like, how am I gonna mark Tanit Esther this year? And inspired by the idea of coming together as a community to support for people to have like not just enough, not just like here's enough until just to get by, but like what is it to support a person to have a celebration, a feast, to have a good time. So I'm inspired to see. I know I don't have much time to organize it, but let's see if that can still happen.
I'll just say I'm taking away and it just like even like struck by the content, the title of the course, but just the opportunity to use the moment before a big celebration to reflect on a crisis, and to not get lost in the prep for the party, but actually to like use the slowness that a fast can evoke and the inner quiet to not be looking at the party that's coming, but actually like contemplating our role and what we want to do for something that's, yeah, so severe, whether it's Esther facing possible death or the imminent crisis that we're all in. So yeah, just appreciating the invitation that you offered with this course. And I definitely wouldn't have been contemplating that on Monday, but I think I will. Yeah. Thank you.
Grandma, you want to say anything? Yeah, and mute. It's not like her to go a whole class and not say anything.
Does she know she's on mute?
I think so.
It looks like she's trying to unmute.
I think she's tired.
Yeah, fair enough. All right, everybody. Thank you so much for coming. Oh, Grandma, you got it?
Yeah, I couldn't, it wouldn't go off before. So, I always like studying with you, Eli. We've done it a lot. You are certainly my inspiration. And I think this class was very good for me after last night's television, which wasn't so good. Um, I think that I wish that not only did we pray that as a person, Esther saved her community, but I think we need the whole community to pray for the community. And I think we have to do something to get everybody involved in saving the climate because it's really getting frightening. I 50 degrees in February in Minnesota was wonderful for an old lady, not good for the climate.
Mm.
Yeah. We did go for a nice walk, though. Well, we'll be the start of the community here together. So thank you all so much for coming. I wish you meaningful ta'anit and a very joyous Purim. And yeah, shalom.
Shalom.
Thanks, Eli.
Shalom. Thank you, Eli.
Yep.
Thank you so much.